Salam Sejahtera. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today as we unveil the findings of a landmark study on earned wage access conducted by 60 Decibels in collaboration with the International Labour Organization, which examines the impact of EWA in emerging markets. Today, we will be deep diving into data gathered from Paywatch users, shedding light on how responsible EWA solutions can contribute to workforce financial resilience and workplace well-being. To kickstart today's event, please welcome Alex Kim, President and co-founder of Paywatch, to deliver his opening remarks.
Thank you for the introduction, Sugri. I'm Alex, co-founder and president of Paywatch. First, I'd like to welcome our esteemed panelists before I begin. Enwan Murdani, president of the Digital Industry Acceleration Vertical of the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. Andrej, technical officer from the International Labour Organization. Pradyot, our lead researcher that worked very hard on this project and manager from the 60 Decibels organization. And Billy Lim, our country manager and CSO. As well as thank you everyone for attending, members of the media, colleagues, and our partners. So I think my job is to very quickly introduce Paywatch, and then we can go on to the more interesting parts of this presentation. So to begin, Paywatch is a multi-product fintech dedicated to fair financial access. We are proudly based out of and headquartered in Malaysia, where we established ourselves with the support of MDEC. And from here, we have expanded to the Philippines, Indonesia, and South Korea. Partnered with major banks, we have humbly become Southeast Asia's leading provider of earned wage access, or EWA, or EWA, as we might call it during this presentation, which is what we're all here to talk about. So on our anchor EWA or EWA service, we work with large companies to allow their employees to instantly access a portion of their earned salary in real time. This is a debt-free solution that helps employees receive their salaries more frequently. So how it works is that we are a B2B2C platform. Companies and their HR deploy our solution as an employee benefit. We integrate with the companies and track the work performed by their employees. And then for every day of work completed, they will be able to instantly access and withdraw a part of the salary that they have worked for and already earned. Today, we have evolved into a comprehensive financial wellness solution, offering various embedded financial products like bill payments, savings, and insurance. And our goal is to ensure that our users develop a better financial habits. But we're all here to talk about EWA. From the start, we began Paywatch to make an impact on the lives of our users. With this in mind, we did very, very simple things like provide our EWA solution at the lowest nominal fee, akin to an ATM fee, or find ways to make it completely free for our users when employees use, when users use it for our bill payments or insurance features. The end result was that by helping employees get financially secure, companies were able to reduce turnover and increase productivity. Happy employees make for happy businesses. This study by 60 Decibels and ILO was incredibly meaningful for us, hearing precisely that 80% of our users improve their quality of life, 76% of users improve their ability to manage their finances, or that 46% of our users now find Paywatch EWA as extremely important when looking for a new job. So today, I hope to engage in a meaningful dialogue on the future of EWA in Southeast Asia. Hear perspectives from our panelists who are looking at the global data from a worldwide perspective, and hopefully discuss on our expectations for EWA going forward in the region and beyond. So with that, let me just turn it back to Sugri, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive right into the key findings from this study. Without further ado, please welcome Pradyot Komaragiri from 60 Decibels, who led the team who put together this study to present the findings.
Thank you so much, Sugri, and thank you so much, Alex, for that introduction as well to this research. Before I start, I wanted to quickly introduce 60 Decibels as well as the entire process. So essentially, we are an impact measurement company, and our main goal is to use data and evidence so that companies and decision makers have the right and relevant data to make decisions within their own operating model. With specific reference to this study, the AWA studies, the rationale behind the study is that this is a new and emerging sort of technology, fintech, that's come about in the last decade and a half. This is there's going to be a practical solution for workers because given the shocks in the global economy as well as other financial shocks, workers face a lot of liquidity crunches wherein there's misalignment in when they need the money for their expenses and their day-to-day living versus when they actually get paid for their work. And traditional payroll systems have been primarily designed keeping in mind the financial convenience of employers. So this often created a misalignment between essentially the needs versus when they're actually getting the input. And AWA essentially is trying to solve for that. And however, given that this is such a new technology, new space from a what you call understanding what the impact of this is on the life of workers, this is one of the key reasons why we decided to understand this better. And we've done this in collaboration with technical inputs from the ILO, but the entire study was led by 60 Decibels. So the main goal of this study is to speak to the end users of earned wage access, AWA users, to understand what are the benefits that they are perceiving, the costs of it, and how are they exactly going about handling it in their day-to-day life. And the hope and the expectation is that research like this can help us uncover a more holistic picture of this technology and centers workers' voices on that. Now, before I jump in, just want to give you a quick background into the profile or the sample of the people that we spoke to. We primarily spoke to 183 people. 43% of the people that we spoke to were female users, and on average, they had conducted at least 3 transactions, which means that over the last 6 months, they have withdrawn using the service at least 3 times. This is the median. Obviously, there are users who used it a lot more and users who used a little bit lesser. In terms of the frequency, as you can see, 70% are regular users. So these are users who have used it more than once a month, every month, or used it more than once a month on some of the months in the last 6 months. And from the financial perspective, 29% or close to 30% of the users reported that they face some difficulty in meeting their monthly expenses. So as you can see, this is the background and profile of the workers, and there is some sense in terms of the financial precarity that they face as well. If you could move to the next slide. Yes. One of the things that we wanted to understand was that what is the role or what is the position of earned wage access within the other sources of financing that's available to a worker? So we had a question where we asked them in the last 6 months, in addition to the earned wage access service that you've received, have you or anyone in your household used any of the other following sources of credit or financing? And we saw that 60% of the users only relied on AWA for all their credit and financing needs. And among those who used additional sources, we actually asked them a follow-up question to see, okay, you've used an additional source of financing. How does this compare to Paywatch's AWA service in terms of are you using it more or less? And we found that even among people who were using additional sources of financing, the AWA service was the most used. Just highlighting how the critical role that this technology is playing in the general capital needs of any worker. And moving ahead, we wanted to understand, again, all of this is in terms of the profile and the background and how people are using the service. We find that the biggest use case for this service is essentially using it for regular household expenses. When I say that, that essentially covers things like utility payments, grocery bills, transportation expenses, so on and so forth. Followed by work emergency household expenses. So this also comes through in some of the qualitative questions that we've asked, wherein people report mentioning it for sudden medical needs, or even in the case of their transportation breaking down, being able to repair that without having to rely on someone else. So there are a lot of use cases in terms of how people are using earned wage access as a service. but the biggest and the most common one is about day-to-day regular household expenses. And I just wanted you to keep a note of that, because that actually helps us to contextualize the impact that all of these workers are facing. Now, coming to the impact, we asked the workers, how has your quality of life changed as a result of accessing the service? And as Alex mentioned earlier, 80% reported overall improvement, and 16% of those actually mentioned it was very much improved. Now, what we typically do, that will come up in the next slide, is that we follow up this question by asking them, if someone has said, yes, my quality of life has improved, we ask them, how has it improved? Now, if you move to the next slide, you'll actually see that these are the top themes that people are reporting. So among users who say that their quality of life has improved, the biggest improvement actually comes in the reduction of financial stress, followed by an improved ability to manage their finances, and also in terms of improved resilience. And all of these are very interlinked themes, but essentially, as you can see, the people are being able to access their own salary in advance actually helps reduce the financial stress, because it's essentially helping them meet their day-to-day expenses a lot more quickly without having to rely on others. And similarly, when it comes to resilience, it ties in with the use case of using it for emergency needs. So essentially, when suddenly they're faced with some sort of a shock, emergency financial shock or burden, they're able to meet it better. The one thing that I want you to take away from this slide, and something that's also not reflected here, unfortunately, is that there's an underlying theme of dignity. Essentially, people speaking about not having to rely on others for funding, but relying on themselves and their own resources to meet any sort of challenge, whether it's financial or meeting any expenses that are a regular part of their monthly financing. So moving ahead, we actually also wanted to understand a bit deeper how AWA is impacting the financial aspects of the worker life. And we asked a series of questions to map that. Starting with savings and debt. And we see that 36% of workers report overall increase in savings, with 7% saying it's very much increased. And when it comes to debt as well, 30% report that there's an overall decrease in debt. Now, one thing that I just wanted to mention is that the female users that we spoke to were more likely to report that their saving balance has increased compared to their male users. There could be a whole range of reasons why this could be. Typically, in some what you call cultures and economies, the females are more likely to be in charge of household decision making and in charge of household financing. So it could be that it's something that further research would help us uncover for sure. But more interestingly, moving ahead, this, I would say, is the core part of what we found, and what we found to be the most interesting as well. The fact that the ability to manage finances, and when we say manage finances, out here, we are specifically looking at monthly finances that are regular, ongoing, and will happen on a recurring basis, as well as the stress. Similar to the qualitative data that you saw previously, even quantitatively, you can see that 3/4 of the sample reported an improvement in their ability to manage finances, and close to 6 in 10, 60% reported an overall decrease in financial stress. Now, the thing here is to mention is that those who are reporting these improvements in their ability to manage finances or reduction in stress levels are also more likely to say that their quality of life has improved. It's from our point of view, from a data point of view, this is the start of what we would consider like a virtuous cycle, where an improvement in the immediate sense of stress or improvement in the ability to manage finances is reducing the mental burden on them, as well as improving their quality of life. So this for us was a key finding to understand and establish the value add that AWA is playing in the lives of workers. Moving to the next slide, and And this is something that Alex also touched upon briefly. We wanted to understand, given that all the users that we spoke to accessed AWA through their employer as a result of working with a certain employer. And we had two questions. One of them was understanding if they were considering a new job, how important would access to AWA be in that new job now that they have had that experience. And we asked them to rate it from 0 to 10, where 0 would be not important at all, and 10 would be extremely important to any new job. And as you can see, 46% of the users we spoke to said that it is out and out a 10 on 10, which is the most important in any future job consideration that they might take, and an average score of 8.6 as well. It just shows to a large extent the sort of, as I mentioned, the sort of critical financing need that AWA seems to be playing and the value add that it is giving to the workers' lives. And then we actually followed up by asking, because of Paywatch, how has your relationship with your employer changed, with your existing employer changed? We see 41% reporting an improvement in it. We also see 59% reporting no change. This is actually coming across in some of our other studies as well as this studies as well, because oftentimes when workers are part of larger conglomerates or larger employers, their immediate interaction with them would be a little less direct, and they're most likely onboarded onto it through a co-worker or like a branch manager. So essentially, the main takeaway from this slide that I want all of you to look at is that it is playing a very critical role in the worker financial needs, and also what you call it is a value add for them generally. Could we move to the next slide? Okay, I think that's yeah, that should be it. I mainly wanted to highlight one other thing, which is that in addition to this, we actually had a couple of quick questions to understand the sort of satisfaction that workers have with Paywatch as a service. And one thing that does come across is, as you can see, people are using it for regular household expenses as well as emergency expenses, and it is impacting them in terms of their ability to manage finances or reduction in stress. All of this actually reflects in their satisfaction with the service as well, where we ask them a question on NPS to ask them like, how satisfied are you with this service? And our data shows that Paywatch's AWA service has a net promoter score of 60, essentially, which is excellent because this is a scale from -100 to 100. So 60 is a very high score. And essentially, the main thing that people are highlighting is how they're able to access it during emergencies and how timely or quick that service is. So it's not just about them being able to access their salary in advance, but also how quickly they're able to access it. Because oftentimes, as is common, emergencies are not really planned. They come up as and when and without much notice. So being able to get quick access, on-time access or timely access is very critical, as in addition to actually knowing that you can access it. So from that point of view as well, we're seeing that essentially there is the start of a virtuous cycle here. And from our point of view, it's something that we would love to do more work in and understand more research of before looking at the long-term impacts as well. But yeah, that's it from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pradyut. That was very, very insightful. Before we move on to the panel discussion, I'd like to welcome Engineer Wan Murdani bin Wan Muhammad, Head of Digital Industry Acceleration and Digital Exports at MDEC, to deliver a keynote address on how Malaysian digital companies are driving financial wellness locally and across the region. Encik Wan Murdani. Do give us a moment, as I think Encik Murdani is having some technical issues. In the meantime, though, since we've just heard from Pradyut on the study itself, I'd like to address everyone else to please deliver your questions in the Q&A box. You can access the Q&A box by clicking on the three dots and then clicking on Q&A. Post your questions there. We'll try to address it towards the end of the session. I see Encik Murdani is on, so I'll hand it over to you, Encik Murdani.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for such a lovely session. Mr. Alex Kim, co-founder of Paywatch, Andre from technical officer from ILO, and Predot, who just gave a nice presentation just now. So I think we are happy to see this kind of development taking place. We believe that EWA is quite an inspiring initiative that is needed very much in this age, because I think at the same time we are going to use that digital technology to make sure that everybody is the equitability in terms of assessing the wages are being enabled by the ability of technology by Paywatch. So we love to see that kind of things to be assessed by more and more communities around the world. So I think from perspective of MDET, I think you are aware that pretty much we want to make sure that we carry the mandate of our government in terms of being able to provide the right tools, and also how do we empower the communities to make sure that they can always be part of the users of technology. So at the same time, we know that Paywatch being the developer of the technology, I think we want to see, we're excited to see how Paywatch has grown from the day that we have started engaging them, and they have gotten the Malaysia digital status, which is very good, as a testament of the capability and ability of Paywatch in coming out with solutions that are quite relevant to the market in this digital space. And then just to further recognition to Paywatch for have been in our programs, our Fox program, and also have participated in a few of our programs that is meant to make sure that we can carry the Malaysian flag not only in domestic market but also in international market. So and then we have also excited to see that we have connected Paywatch to various VCs through our investor matching program, and also we like to thank Paywatch for being our digital Dex Connect in Philippines, and also in Expand North Star in last year. So I think as far as the journey of Paywatch, so this kind of EWA is something that we want to say that we are quite excited to see that this has from the deck just now presented by Braddock. So we have seen that there are some positive traction by the intended communities, by the target communities, to make sure that they can access to the funds that they need. So not only depending on the monthly payroll, I think as the technology evolves, and also in terms of different works being carried out, I think they deserve this kind of treatment in terms of having technology to make sure that they can access their wages along the line. So this is pretty much aligned to our transformation program, and certainly EWA is something that is complementing our effort very well to make sure that Malaysia can empower Malaysians and also other users to make use of technology to make sure that it can uplift their socio-economic benefits. So again, as we look ahead, there are so much opportunities and innovation moving forward, and I'm excited to see how the potential of this thing can be further leveraged by MDET and Paywatch. And thanks ILO, thanks Decibel for sharing such a session. So again, at MDET, we are very much open to any suggestions. So do come to us, and then certainly there are ways that we can work together to make sure that we can achieve the national aspiration of meeting the goals of digital economy contributing about 25.3% by end of this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that address, Encik Wan Murdani. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have set the stage for a rich panel discussion where we will explore what these findings mean in practice, for workers, for businesses, and for policy stakeholders alike. Making up our panel are four individuals who bring very different but complementary perspectives on the topic of EWA. You've already heard from two of them earlier, Alex and Pradyot. Let me now take a moment to formally introduce two more gentlemen who will be joining us as a panelist this afternoon. First, let me welcome Billy Lim, Country Manager for Paywatch Malaysia, as well as Andrei Slivnik, Technical Officer at the ILO Global Center on Digital Wellness for Decent Work. Let's start with some questions for the panelists. We'll give them a second to all come on screen.
A question from the press.
Yeah, everyone's online. Great. So let's start with the question for Andre first. Andre, your title is very interesting, and I'm sure the audiences here are curious to know about the work that you do. Could you perhaps share a little bit about your background, and accordingly, I think what triggered you to work on this study with 60 decibels and with Paywatch?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Alex, Mr. Mordani, also from MDEC. Very, very good to hear from you. Pradyot, congratulations for yet another super interesting presentation on EWA. It's been great collaborating with 60 decibels as well. Well, the ILO is the International Labour Organization. Our mandate is social justice and decent work. Within the ILO, I work at a unit which is called social finance, and we basically try to understand how the financial sector can contribute to decent work outcomes. About 4 years ago, we have established the Global Center on Digital Wages for Decent Work. This center was established to promote the transition from cash to digital wage payments. Globally, around 320 million workers still receive their wages in cash, and we understand that there are potential benefits in them transitioning to payments into bank accounts, mobile money accounts, or prepaid cards. Within this work, we are also interested in additional financial services and the whole topic of financial inclusion and how workers can benefit from financial inclusion. So this is the framework in which we are normally operating on our day-to-day basis. And we started to receive questions, and this is something the ILO also does. We have a business help desk where employers can send questions to the ILO and understand, if they have doubts around labor regulations. And they started asking us about EWA, and we didn't really know what EWA was about. And then we said, well, it's better that we do, right? So that's how we started this research. And then obviously the moment we understood what EWA was about, it's very much in line the topics that EWA mobilizes on wage payments and how it is a partnership between a financial service provider and an employer that really brings the topic home in terms of the ILO mandate. And it's been just a very interesting journey for us, understanding the service, understanding its potential impact, and just trying to address how we can maximize the benefits that worker can have by using it.
Very interesting. Pradyot, so the presentation earlier, and I'm working with Alex as well. We knew that this was very exciting data. It is one of the first of its kind. When it comes to studies on EWA, you led the research of this study. We just wanted to ask, like, of all the findings and all the conversations that you've had, all the data that you've reviewed, which one stood out to you the most in terms of how workers are using EWA and their rationale behind it?
Thank you so much for that. I think the biggest thing for us initially, before we even started the study, was we thought this was primarily used as an emergency stopgap solution. I think one of the biggest findings that we're seeing actually is that how ubiquitous it's become and how people are using it for their day-to-day expenses, managing that, and how that is actually leading to a reduction in stress, which is another key outcome that we are also hypothesizing, but the route to that was something that we didn't expect. So that was unexpected, but also something that stood out for me.
Okay. I can see Alex's gears moving in there. So I have a question for you now, Alex. just talking about how EWA is changing the workplace, as Pradyut pointed out, it's not just an emergency fund, right? And you've led Paywatch from the start. So in your experience working with companies, expanding the business across the region, how have you seen, how EWA impacts workforce, productivity or retention? Can you share a little bit with us in terms of like the practical?
Sure. Thanks for that, Sugri. Actually, we were very quite ambitious from the start. We established Paywatch in Malaysia in 2021, and then shortly after we went into Philippines, as well as Indonesia. What's interesting is that you really see that the plight of employees and their concerns is very universal when it comes to pay. When workers are under like financial strain, that's one of the biggest issues that they come across in terms that impacts their productivity. And actually, from this study, one of the few big things that huge takeaways that I had was that from the start, we wanted to make sure that we provided financial impact. We were always impact oriented from the beginning, but finding out that we were providing, that through our service, 36% increased their savings, 30% decreased their debt. I think these are incredibly crucial, points of data for us. Also, incredibly encouraging that we're on the right track. But also this idea of dignity that Pradyut also mentioned is so important. It's hard to measure, but however, the fact that people can rely on themselves to pull themselves out of situations whenever there's a need, I think that impact is incredibly important. And I think, I mentioned this in the beginning, but this idea that the interests of the employees and the employers are aligned when it comes to financial health is something that's universal. And we see it in Malaysia, we see it in the Philippines, we see it in Indonesia, we see it in our clients, even in South Korea. The idea is that companies, we have large companies like Jaya Grocer, Guardian, Media Prima, all utilizing us in the case of Malaysia. And we're finding that, when you take care of the financial health of employees, at the end of the day, it actually makes their productivity much higher. And also companies are able to retain the type of talent that they want, right? And then recruitment is always a huge issue. When they have EWA, as EWA's awareness gets higher, having EWA as one of the big benefits that they have will attract the right types of people, also be able to retain the right types of talent, keep people happy, keep them productive as well, which aligns with everybody's interests.
Interesting. So I'd like to just drill down a little deeper on, EWA in Malaysia. Billy, you're the country lead for Paywatch Malaysia. My question to you is, what has the reception from Malaysian employers regarding EWA been like? How is it aligning with the needs of employers? I think, taking what Alex had shared a step further, what's the situation like for Malaysia specifically? And I think more importantly, as Malaysians here, how is it aligning with our trajectory as a nation, right? We've always wanted to go digital first. We want to take advantage of the digital economy. Please share your thoughts on this.
Sure. Thank you, Sugri, and thank you, Andre and Pradyut, for the talks earlier. So thanks for the question, Sugri. So in Malaysia, to answer your question first, right? In Malaysia, the response to earned wage access, EWA, right, has been overwhelmingly positive, especially as more and more companies, right, recognize the direct link between financial well-being and workplace performance. So when employers are increasingly looking for practical, cost-effective ways to support their workforce, EWA has emerged as a high-impact solution, right, that actually benefits both the businesses as well as the employees. So let us maybe view from this employees angle, okay? So the appeal is very clear, right? Timely access to earned wages reduces financial stress and reliance on high-interest loan. So in our study, 76% of the users, right, actually said that EWA has helped them to manage their finances better, and 49% reduce their dependence on payday loans or salary advances. That means that, right, employees are not just making ends meet, right? They're actually improving their financial habits. On the other hand, from an employer perspective, okay, to answer your question, the second part, right? Many companies actually sees earned wage access as a game changer for retention and engagement. So in industries with high turnover, right, such as retail, F&B, and also manufacturing, workers often leave for slightly higher wages elsewhere. But when businesses offer EWA as a benefit, right, employees feel more financially secure and valued, which leads to higher job satisfaction and lower attrition rates. So beyond individual companies, EWA actually aligns with Malaysia's broader push towards a digital-first economy. As the country accelerates towards digital transformation, I would say that financial technology platform or solutions like us are helping to modernize how salaries are accessed and managed. So MDEC's vision for a digitally empowered workforce is built on innovation, and Paywatch here is proud to be part of that ecosystem, leveraging secure, Sharia-compliant, and regulated financial solutions to improve workers' life. Ultimately, I would say that the momentum we are seeing in Malaysia shows that EWA is not just a trend, okay? It is becoming a standard for responsible wage management. So more and more companies are joining this movement, and we are very, very excited to continue working with employers, regulators, and even financial institutions to expand financial access and drive meaningful change. I hope that covered the questions that you brought up, Sukhi.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, just to jump in, I mean, when we first started this in 2021, it took a long time for us to explain this solution to our client companies in Malaysia or Philippines or Indonesia. But now I think the awareness is it's still in the nascent stages, but we're seeing the real awareness actually it has increased like drastically over the last year and a half. I mean, we're extremely proud to be at the forefront of this.
Great. So I just want to latch on to the last point that you made, right? That EWA is turning into a trend, and that you're continuously working with various stakeholders across the region. So I just wanted to have a little bit of an open question to everyone here. Mainly, I think Alex, Billy, and maybe Andre. So my question would be, from a Malaysian standpoint, from an ASEAN standpoint, and from a global standpoint, what kind of policies or regulations do you think is required? And I think, for Paywatch, that would be, what kind of challenges are you seeing? What do you hope for? And from Andre's perspective, where do you think the interests can align with the work that you're doing? So maybe Alex, you can.
Should I start? Okay. Okay. I think it's very simple things. I mean, like I said, making sure at the end of the day, this is an employee benefit solution.
Yeah.
And it needs to be. When we started, we always wanted to work with the companies to deploy this to their employees. And thereby, you're able to make this a debt-free product. You're actually able to create, a product that's essentially on-demand salary. Now, firstly, like making sure that you work with the companies is crucial, because actually through that, the HRs will be aligned with us in terms of deploying a solution that's good for the employee's financial health. And so like creating limits on how much people can access of their earned salary in the real-time basis. It's not for the entire thing. Usually we will work with just their base salary, maybe around 50% being something that's been the most frequently adopted. And that is enough to create the financial impact, while also making sure that there are guardrails in order to ensure that this is utilized responsibly. Pricing is, I mean, we called it fair financial access, and this is extremely important. Everybody talks about the fair financial access part. Nobody, or rarely people talk about the fairness aspect. The fairness aspect really talks about pricing, consumer protection, security. These are all parts of it, right? So in order for this solution to really make sense, it has to be a nominal fee price product. I mean, on average across the globe, I mean, we charge around 50 cents US per transaction. And that's for our base service. And then for other services like bill payments, when the user earned wage credit to pay for the bills, we made it completely free to the end users. And these are, finding ways to make sure that you're not monetizing from other diversified ways to monetizing it. I think that's also part of it. But having talked to Andre on this several times, a few times, I think it is it's something that we really want to do is guide the industry in the right direction, that we are all impact oriented. I think that's the only way to really make sure that this is a truly universally adopted and remains like an ethical, sustainable finance solution.
Can I jump in then? I think for us, we see what we did. So the report Bradjo presented is the case study that for Malaysia, for Paywatch in Malaysia. In Malaysia, we are about to publish a global report with findings across different countries, which we did in partnership with 60 decibels, but also interviewing different stakeholders, regulators, and employers organizations, workers organizations on a global level. It is a trend. I mean, we've been able to identify, I would say, 65 plus providers at the global level on the EWA space. Some in Malaysia, including, and I think it's the benefits are clear for the workers, right? But we also see some potential risks for the workers and for the employers, and that's where the discussion on regulation or having clear standards on what would be, the gold model for EWA could help organize the market and give everyone some level of confidence in the way that the service is being offered. I think from our perspective, it's also about policy coordination in a way. So EWA is typically being regulated by, when it's being regulated by financial consumer protection authorities or by central banks. So it's very much perceived as a financial service, right? And being regulated as such. But we are talking about wage payments, and wage payments is a labor relations issue, and it requires labor regulation. So what we have been saying is a lot on coordination also with ministries of labor and trying to understand the impact and how EWA is connected to other labor issues, which are important, such as wage policies, such as including, the whole discussion that we have now in the ILO on living wages, and also social protection policies that also need to be in place for the service to be really optimal and have really the most relevant impact on workers' financial lives. And then finally, I also think from the perspective of the ILO, we need to ensure that social dialogue is in place, both at the enterprise level, so that workers and employers are in full dialogue around the service and how the service is being implemented, that we're listening to workers' actual experiences using this financial service and others, and also at a more policy related side. What I've been talking to Alex that I think could be an interesting first step on this definition of this golden standard is really to get the providers together and have a conversation around the good practices. Also listening to employers and also listening to workers and to governments, so that we can really have a sort of a basic and common understanding on how to move forward with the provision of EWA, not only in Malaysia but at a global level.
Yeah, Andrea, I think we just started that lightly last few days, right? I mean, creating this conduct of practice, getting together, and then creating this sort of this concept of a responsible EWA. That I think that was like a brilliant, brilliant sort of idea. That and we're fully on board. I think it's time to. I mean, there's so many. It's such a fragmented market, and yet it's such a global trend. It only makes sense that we start getting people together and like-minded individuals to really talk about how we could actually make sure that this is guided in the right direction.
Wow. Very interesting stuff, gentlemen. I'd like to now direct one more question to Pradyot. And this is sort of like taking, everything that we've discussed forward. I mean, we're looking at the future right now. We know that EWA as it stands is a lot more than we think it is. It's so much more than just that, safety net that you can fall back on. We're seeing its benefits come across in many different ways. Dignity was mentioned a few times. So I just wanted to ask, Pradyot, having researched this, as you were, out there gathering the data, reviewing it, was there any additional research areas that you felt could have strengthened your case study for responsible EWA implementation?
Yes, definitely. That's my short answer. But I think this was a very exciting project for us because it's such a new space for us, for me personally, but also I think in terms of understanding and measuring the impact, because it's as a product, it doesn't fall into the neat categories of financial services that previously we have worked on. I think in terms of a couple of things that we could have done differently, and we would love to do that in the future, is understanding the long-term impact of EWA. Obviously, that would not be possible in the study that we did, but essentially, we now have a snapshot understanding at a given place and time. But we want to understand long-term what's happening in terms of workers' financial lives and impact. The second thing is just understanding in the context of larger social protection and safety nets that workers might or might not have access to. How does that play in how they use the service, but also how they, is it that workers with the largest safety net in terms of insurances or in terms of other products that they can get access to, is that leading to a larger impact in terms of the bundling of the products that they are accessing? So a couple of questions that are coming across from the that we've done, and we would love to understand more of for sure.
Pradyot, we could probably help you with that long-term study. We've actually seen some of the users actually jump from different companies to different companies that are already on our system, and so we've kind of historically seen that happen as well. I'm sure over the next few years, we're still early, but over the next few years, I'm sure we'll be able to kind of track and identify at least certain users that we could potentially survey.
Excellent. So before we move on to the closing portion of this panel discussion, I'd like to remind everyone, we've got a few questions coming in from the audience, but just a quick reminder to everyone, including the members of the media, please submit your questions in the Zoom Q&A box. You can access it by clicking on the three dots right at the bottom of the screen. Kindly include your name and publication if you're from the media, and specify, if you'd like, which panelists you'd like to direct your question to. Before we get to those questions, I'd like to wrap our panel discussion up by giving each of the speaker a chance to answer a very simple question, which is, if there's one key takeaway you'd like employers to remember about EWA, what would it be? Maybe we can start with Alex, and we can go from there.
Sure. I think it's very simple. I think I already mentioned it already. But taking care of your financial wellness of your employees is also in the interest of the companies. Happy employees and less financially stressed and more financially stable employees will also help the companies as well. And that's been the thought from the beginning, and I think it's been proven true over the last few years.
Billy, perhaps you can go next.
Okay, maybe I'll just add on. I'll maybe end with this word flexibility. Okay, so you see, post-pandemic, post-COVID, right? Employees are looking and putting a lot of emphasis on flexibility when looking at employee benefits for a company or an organization. You heard people talking about work from home policies, flexible medical benefits, and whether those leave, that unused leave, whether can it be uncashed. These are all flexibility. So it is actually no wrong, for employees to start looking at flexibility in the way that they are getting paid. So by adopting earned wage access, right? The companies, the HR, they have the flexibility on continuing to process their payroll once a month, for example. But with platform like us, Paywatch, right? The employees will have the luxury to access a portion of what they have earned anyway with dignity, as and when they need it. I think that's a very important message that we want to send out to all the HR practitioners out there, specifically across the industry. And like what I would like to echo Alex's sentiment is that most importantly is they need to be very clear that this is not a lending product and it is a portion of wages that they have already earned. They have the right to access it as and when they need it. Thank you, Sugri.
Pradyot, perhaps you can take the next.
I mean, nothing really to add on. I think Alex has mentioned it. Financial stress is my biggest takeaway from this and the impact that AVA has on financial stress, because at the end of the day, it's helping improve stress levels. And this is not related to just workers. I think this is a common sense thing that all of us can agree on, that reduced stress just improves how you turn up at work and how you do at work. So I think from that point of view, it's a rising tide and it lifts all boats. So from that point of view, that was the one takeaway that I would like employers to keep in mind.
Thank you. And Andre, your takeaway?
Yeah, sure. Well, as an official from a tripartite organization, I think I have to say social dialogue and the importance that employers are involved in the provision of the service and in dialogue with workers, be it at the enterprise level or at a more national level, engaging with trade unions. It's just important that they are engaged, involved, and discussing the topic and understanding the best way to partner with financial service providers to offer it.
Brilliant. So thank you all, gentlemen, for participating in this panel discussion. I'll now move on to some questions from our audience. I'm going to start with a question from Z, who asks, maybe Alex, this would be an appropriate question for you. So the question is, do you provide sorry, give me a second. Do you provide financial literacy resources or budgeting tools to help users avoid over-reliance? Also, was EWA/Paywatch set up to address emergency financial situations? How do the findings change EWA's roles? Quite a long
Sure, absolutely. I think, firstly, on the first question, you're right. I think, I mean, what Pradyut found was also similar to our experience in that, at the beginning, we saw this essentially like as an insurance product. It's another form of insurance, right? When you need it, it's there. However, what we actually found is this idea that actually the reason that people are turning to loans and informal means to borrow on a regular basis is because their expense needs are daily, and yet they're only getting paid once a month or like twice a month, depending on their job. And so, that expense needs and the cash flow doesn't align. And that's why having this solution as like sort of a side pocket has allowed employees to actually utilize this more regularly for their necessities. And that's extremely important. Actually, now we actually see this as a necessity product, in addition to as serving this kind of function as an insurance type product when emergencies also happen. Secondly, I think, sorry, what was the first question? First part of the question.
The first part of the question was, do you provide financial literacy resources? The second part,
Yes.
how was Paywatch set up to address emerging financial situations?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, absolutely. I mean, so actually, one of the first things that we did was create a financial literacy a feature within our platform as well. And this is something that we're continuing to develop and enhance on a daily basis.
Okay. Billy or Andre, do you all have anything to add to that?
All good.
Okay. If we don't, then I have another question here, which I do not have the name from. If you're putting in the questions, do kindly put your name in so we can, if we are unable to answer it, we can get back to you later on as well. But I'll jump to the question. This one I think would be a good question for Billy, which is with regards to the Malaysian context, with BNPL, buy now, pay later, coming under scrutiny, do you foresee EWA becoming more popularly adopted in Malaysia?
Thank you, Sugri. So maybe just to reiterate again, so earned wage access or EWA, right, is not a loan, right? Again, I would like to reiterate this. In reality, it provides access to already earned wages. So that's the biggest misconceptions that we would love to always address, especially even among the HR stakeholders, right? So it is not a loan, so it should not be seen as an alternative to it. So maybe let's be very clear. Buy now, pay later is a concept where it can be to induce users to purchase something to be paid back in subsequent months or what. But for earned wage access, if you understand the concept clearly, so all the wages that we give access to the user or employees, right, are already earned. and we kept it at a certain percentage. So we focus and emphasize a lot on responsible usage on this in our launching, right? So whatever amount that they have withdrawn, the employees throughout the month before payday, right? It has to be settled on that month itself. So we don't bring this forward. So there's no tail to it. So the whole cycle starts again immediately on the second month. I think to answer this, I think it's important to differentiate us and BNPL. I mean,
Yes.
with the rise of popularity with BNPL, I mean, I would be happy. I mean, we will be happy if more and more people know and understand about what earned wage access is, and we hope to see that awareness continues to be in the market.
Great.
Thank you, Sugri.
One last question, and this one I think we would address it to Pradyot. So this is a question from Alina. And the question goes, the study was conducted with 183 employees. From a survey sample size perspective, how representative is this data in reflecting the views of a large group? I think it's a fairly common question that researchers and analysts get. Pradyot, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, thank you for that question, Alina. So we've received a contact base of approximately 1,300 something workers. So the sample size of 183 actually gives us all the quantitative data that you'll see in the report is statistically rigorous at a 90% confidence level with a 6% margin of error. And this is 90% confidence level is typically much higher than in usual market research studies, which go for a lower range. So that's how it is representative of. These were the workers who essentially were consented to also be contacted and participate in the study.
Great. So I think we're a little past time. Any more questions? I'm just seeing here. We have one more question. So one last question for Andre, which is, a little bit similar to the question that we were discussing earlier with regards to, policy considerations and regulations. But this question dives down specifically into what are the regulatory challenges in Southeast Asia when it comes to EWA adoption from your perspective? What needs to change over here?
I don't think it's about anything needing. I mean, I think the issue is that it's a complex product that involves different aspects, both financial and labor on the labor side. So and this is not an easy product to regulate. We have seen challenges as elsewhere. It typically falls under financial service regulations, and then it doesn't necessarily fit super well. So I think that there would be a need at some point, depending on the size of the market as well, to have specific regulation on EWA, which is something that we see some countries moving towards. But I honestly think that as a first step, a conversation with providers is probably just to understand the main issues would be an interesting entry point. And I think the biggest challenge is really, as I said, coordination between labor and financial regulations. I mean, it's if Billy said it's not alone, I think I cannot comment on that. I think this is for central banks to decide. But the question I would add is it a wage, right? And then if it's not a loan nor a wage, then what it is, right? So I think this is what the challenging aspect of the discussion on regulating EWA.
I think what's interesting from what I've seen so far is different regulators are more advanced than others. So Indonesia Labor Ministry is more advanced, and so they have certain like guidelines about it. Malaysia is a little bit too fragmented. Everybody makes their own decisions, and actually every company, and actually regulatory clarity is extremely important, both on labor side and the financial side, because it will reduce the headache in every aspect. And so, I mean, something that we really welcome, and we actually have advocated for, and liaise regularly with all the regulators in order to do. But I have seen, but what is definitely for sure is that some markets, let's say like Indonesia or Philippines, where things are a little bit more clear, it makes things easier for everyone. So that's something that's really needed.
Absolutely agreed, and we are happy to collaborate on discussing regulations with governments in all of the countries in Southeast Asia.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
I love it. All right. Before we wrap up, can I please have all the panelists just pose for the camera for a very quick.
Sure.
Let me check if the team is ready. I see Juan Murdani is also here. Please do join the screenshot as well.
Okay, I better get ready.
Can I get confirmation from my team that we've gotten the picture taken? Are we good? All right, everyone ready? Look at the camera. 3, 2, 1. And I think we are good. Great.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us for the session today. I want to thank the audience as well for taking the time to join on this truly one-of-a-kind, first-of-its-kind discussion. The findings of this study make it very clear. Responsible earned wage access is not just an employee benefit. It's a powerful tool for financial empowerment, workplace well-being, and economic inclusion, not to mention dignity. The dialogue on EWA, as Andre had pointed out earlier, it's still young. It does not end here. So we encourage businesses, regulators, members of the audience who are here today to continue engaging on discussions so that we can ensure EWA is implemented responsibly and ethically. If you're interested in leveraging EWA, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Paywatch team. To the members of the media, we will be sending a press release to you shortly. Please do reach out to our team if you have any questions or clarifications. Any questions that have not been answered today, we will try and get back to you via email. Thank you all again for being part of today's discussion. We look forward to continued collaboration and progress in making financial security accessible to. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Sugri. Thank you, Andre. See you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.